All right. Good morning, guys. Welcome to my Monday morning rant for Monday, the 7th of December. That was a really long week. Was it a long week for you guys? Feels like it's been a long time since I've done one of these podcasts. I don't know why, it just does. Um, it was a pretty quiet week for me, but I managed to catch up with my first love, Karen Gillespie, who I went out with for 7 years. We created the Australian in-front design community together. She's a girl from Byron Bay, and she taught me so much about nature. And she had this awesome house that her grandma owned out at Sandon River up near Grafton, sort of near Byron. And it's a really remote fishing village where you'd have to four-wheel drive to get there. And that four-wheel drive was not easy. And you also had to pack as much food as you could to pack into the two fridges there because there are no shops. And when you run out of food, you have to fish for your food. And it's probably the closest I've ever gotten to living off the land. And I was just so in love with this place. I was in love with this girl and I was in love with this place. And she's like a queen out there. Like she was always hopelessly lost living with me in the city. Um, just some of the little things that she did would always blow my mind. She would see people in the city dropping trash on the ground. She would pick it up, throw it in the rubbish bin, and when they would apologize for throwing the trash on the ground, she would yell out, "Don't be sorry to me." It's just a hippie in the city. And she helped me so much to connect with my inner hippie, just geeking out and freaking out over nature. And she even taught me how to surf. And initially I was just so hopeless at it, and I was so scared of the water. I was just so scared of getting out the back there and realizing that you can't see your feet in the dark water, and thinking of sharks and stuff. And then you catch that first wave, and for ages I could only go straight, and eventually she taught me how to go along with the wave sideways, left or right, usually right for me because I'm goofy foot. And that one time where I caught a wave with her and we were just going along side by side, so close that I could actually reach out and touch her. And while we were surfing on this wave, it's just something I'll never forget. And I honestly wish I would be able to just pick up a board and surf at Maruba Beach where I live, but it's so hardcore out there and it's almost political that I just don't have the confidence. But hey, when you're out somewhere remote where you're the only people around, and the waves are gentle, and you've got a big mal rather than a shortboard. It's amazing. If you guys have never tried surfing, maybe don't try it at Bondi Beach. Maybe go up north and uh, and find some mates and just give it a go, because it is nothing like skateboarding. As much as I love skateboarding, it's nothing like it. Just the way the waves feel under your feet, and the way the hollowness of the board, the way it feels through your feet, it's something else. So yeah, we caught up. She has two kids, gorgeous kids, by the way, beautiful blue eyes. But those who know me know that I've never been a huge fan of kids. I don't know how to deal with kids that are throwing tantrums. It just makes me feel stressed out, like they zap the fuck out of my energy. And I totally get it that people get so much energy out of having children. And I get it more than ever. If anything, doing podcasts with people who've got kids, I always try to bring up kids because I want to understand it some more. But hanging out with Karen's two kids drove me bonkers mad. Oh my God. Like they're gorgeous kids, but holy shit, I was struggling. We went to the Sydney Aquarium in Darling Harbour, and I fucking love aquariums, right? My dad was the first guy in Sydney to open an aquarium shop that sold saltwater fish. So he was the first guy to sell clownfish and lionfish and all that kind of shit in a small aquarium shop in Bondi Beach. My mum still has a paper clipping of him in the newspaper being acknowledged for selling marine fish for the first time in Sydney. And it's funny, everything that my dad was into as a kid, I didn't understand. But as an adult, I've been into everything that he was into. He was mad about art. He was an amazing artist. He was crazy about cars. Crazy about cars. He was a really fast driver. I loved corners, and so I got into cars, obviously, and he was crazy about aquariums and fishing, and I love that shit. So we went to the aquarium. I was pretty excited about it because I hadn't been in a while, and it's always a hit and miss with the aquarium. Like, as someone who keeps aquariums, I know when an aquarium is healthy or not. And the Sydney Aquarium has been hit and miss for me. Sometimes you go in there and it looks like, man, they need to clean some shit up. Like, it's not just about cleaning the glass, it's about how healthy your stock looks, right? So if the fish and the corals look healthy, then you know they're doing a good job. But this time around, it was 50-50, I'd say. Half of the tanks were great, and the other half, especially the huge display at the end, was really not in good shape. The water was pretty murky, and fish were scraping their gills on, flashing their gills on the sand. And when a fish does that, when a fish sort of goes and flashes themselves off the sand, it's to scratch their gills, and it's because their gills are irritated with something in the water. Something's not right. So I saw a fair bit of that, and it's a shame. But back to the aquarium. Oh my god, it seemed like there's no COVID, even though there was a case or something like that in Darling Harbour. There is no COVID around. There was no social distancing whatsoever. There was a huge queue of parents with kids. It seemed like everyone that was there in that 10 o'clock in the morning session had children. And you'd think that kids would love the aquarium, right? But as soon as we were allowed in, there were kids throwing tantrums left, right, and center. I mean, there was one little kid that was marching through the thing, screaming off the top of her little lungs, but my God, she was like a little Kurt Cobain. And you just see the parents like just tagging along, and there's nothing they can do. Um, and sadly, I even saw a dad shake his little daughter by the shoulders to stop her from crying, and he shook her really fucking hard. And that felt really yucky to see that. Like, it's not like I was gonna fucking say something, but my God, it wasn't nice to see. I mean, that was in public, so I'd hate to see how he treats her in private. But just these kids like losing their shit in there, and tears coming out everywhere, and it's like, oh my God, you're at the aquarium though, like, shouldn't this be fun? And maybe I don't get why parents think that taking kids to an aquarium or the zoo would be fun. I mean, it's tiring, right? Like, it's a long trek through the aquarium. It's all indoors, and it's stuffy in there and smells fishy in some bits, and like, there's a lot of noise in there. It's far from peaceful. So maybe the logic itself is flawed. Maybe just do something closer to home and something more chill than actually trekking out into the city and crazy traffic to to experience something like the aquarium. I don't know. But what was fascinating was we get to the end of the aquarium, and there's the huge gift shop, right? Like, exit through the gift shop. And one of Karen's kids really wanted one of these plushies, like a plushie of a seahorse. And Karen said no because she bought plushies yesterday. And also that her kid has a whole box full of plushies that she never plays with. Like she'll buy them and then 2 or 3 days later, they're stored away and she'll never touch them again. But just to see how her kid reacted to not being able to get this toy and how she just started to tear up and then went into a huge cry and tantrum about it. Like, oh, trying to ignore that is apparently what you're meant to do. It's what you're ignoring. Just ignore it. Justin, just ignore it. She'll be happy and totally forget about the plushie in 5 minutes from now. And yeah, true enough. As soon as we got out of there, she forgot about it and she was back to her happy self. It's just crazy psychology. Like, if I had a kid, I'd be trying to figure that shit out so bad that it would just be the end of me, I think. But what was even worse than that was, and it wasn't that bad, but what happened next was fucking shocking. Um, Karen's little kid, we were just about to exit the gift shop, and he's not next to us. We look down, we look around, he's not even in the shop. I start freaking the fuck out. Karen has this motherly instinct. She knew that he had gone back into the aquarium. But to get back into the aquarium, you're going from a very bright shop into a really dark area. And there was a sliding door as well, like an automatic sliding door. So he would have had to go through that. So I was more thinking that he's been fucking abducted and taken out of the fucking shop. So I run outside, check out all the fucking ceilings for cameras, walked up to a staff person, asked them if they'd seen a little kid run past, and they hadn't. And then I was asking about the security cameras. I think I've just watched too many of those fucking documentaries. It was only like 2 weeks ago I watched this shocking documentary on two kids in London. I think it was two kids that went to a mall and abducted another little kid and murdered him. So I had all that shit fresh in my head. I was freaking the fuck out. And I just had to sit there with Karen's other kid while Karen was inside the aquarium looking for her missing kid. And it took it felt like forever. I'm sure it was only like 5 minutes, but it felt like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And eventually she came out with him and he was crying, and apparently he'd gone in there looking for us, and he had bolted and run almost all the way back to the start of the aquarium. Like, and someone had stopped him, and a parent had approached Karen, must have seen the look on Karen's face and said, "Oh, look, are you missing a kid?" And uh, he's gone that way, So I think that helped her a lot to calm down and realize, well, yeah, he's inside. But holy fuck, like, that just scared the shit out of me. Karen was okay with it. Like, that's the thing. She's so cool with it all. We then went to try to grab some lunch, and I don't know what it is about going to the aquarium, but every time I have gone to the aquarium, I always feel like eating fish afterwards. It's so fucking weird, but I had a craving for fish. But no, she wanted to go to Blackbird Cafe, which we used to go to like years ago, right? So we went to Blackbird, and there were so many empty tables, but they said that they were booked out for half an hour, and Karen, we just felt really weird. It's almost like they didn't want to have two kids there, and I think they could see that the kids were crying as well. Um, so we felt like that was a bit of a conspiracy. So we went just to the next restaurant next door to that, which happened to be a seafood restaurant. So I was pretty happy. But the seafood restaurant was the same deal. They were like, oh, trying to find us a table, but all I could see was empty tables for miles. And instead of sitting us out in the sun where all the nice tables are, they sat us out at the very back corner. And I think, again, it's just seeing two kids that are crying. maybe they were like, oh shit, we can't put these next to other paying patrons, But as soon as we checked out the menu, it was like, oh my god, these Sydney prices, like $40 for fish and chips. So first thing I asked this young waitress is, does my fish and chips come with tartare sauce? And she said, excuse me? I'm like, uh, does the fish and chips come with tartare sauce? And she's like, no sauce, just lemon. It's got lemon. And I'm like, well, can I have some tartare sauce? I fucking love tartare sauce. And she had to go and ask the chefs because she had no idea what tartare sauce was. And she works in a fucking seafood restaurant. And the prices were ridiculous. And yeah, that's Sydney for you. That Sydney tax, um, it's savage. And I get it, they're on the water, the rent's probably fucking crazy, but yeah, it didn't feel good to see Karen just having to fork out so much fucking money. She seemed to have blown the credit card during her visit, but hey, that's the way it is, I suppose. It seemed like at least she had a great time. Um, and my day didn't end there. So hung out with the kids, went back to their hotel, hung out with the kids some more, saw them have some more tantrums and fights and stuff. And then that afternoon, we went to visit my sister to hang out with her two kids. And oh my God, I have not hung out with so many kids, four kids for a whole day. Like my sister's eldest kid is crazy competitive with me with handball, and I love it. But my inner thighs are still sore today from going hard with him for I don't know how long we played for, but holy shit, he's really good at handball. But I'm really good too. Like, man, I haven't played handball since high school, but before I was like hanging out with Sydney Girls High, year 7, year 8, year 9, I was just a handball fiend. Like every day was handball for me. Life was handball. So I think he's totally shocked that Uncle Tin can play handball. And he even said at the end of the day, at the end of that night, he was like, "You're the best handball player I know." And that's awesome. I just fucking love it. Um, yeah, that kid is amazing, and he's awesome on the piano too. Like his fingers are so little, but somehow he manages to reach these crazy chords, and he plays really fast too. Like man, if he was a guitarist, he would be a little Jimi Hendrix. So ooh, like I can see when kids get to a point where they definitely are magical. Some of the shit that they can do is it excels. Like what he can play on the piano excels what I could play any day of the week. And if he was a guitarist, he'd be better than me by now already as well. So that is super impressive. But yeah, come Sunday, I was meant to hang out with an old mate, and he was having a house party, and I had good intentions to go, but I honestly was drained and exhausted from hanging out with kids for the day before. Like I don't mean any offense to people who've got kids that get so much energy out of them, but for me, I suppose there's all types of people in this world, right? And I am just one of those types of people that don't value children. I don't hate children. I used to say it all the fucking time that I hate kids. And when I was in a really bad place a couple of years ago and seeing psychiatric help, that was one thing that my psychiatrist called me out on. She said, "Why do you have to use the word hate? It's such a fucking strong word. Just say you dislike children. Don't say you hate them." So yeah, I've come a long way since then. But yeah, moving on, right? I got a call from one of my great friends, Christy. She's an amazing artist. I got a call from Christy's mum last week. It was so cool to get a call from your friend's mum. Like it's just doesn't happen enough. And Christy's mum is really into her Nissan Skyline. It's so cool. It's a really nice car too. And she went out on a cruise through the twisties with a work colleague of hers, a young guy who's got a brand new 86 or a BRZ, I think it is. And And they went out for a twisty run on a really nice day. And she was telling me that this guy in a trailer with a boat on a trailer or something like that was doing his damn best to split the two apart and get in between them at every opportunity he could. And he wouldn't let her pass to catch up with a friend. And eventually, this guy in the trailer stuck his middle finger up at him out the window. And and Christy's mum Rachel just wanted to call me to tell me about that and how frustrated she was with that, and that she really wanted a humongous "it's okay if you don't get it" sticker for her car. And she really asked me if I could make one and start selling them again. And I've had a few people ask to remake those stickers, and I will get around to it. I will get around to many things. I just don't seem to have any kind of sense of rushing things these days. But I will get around to it. And what's awesome is that it's awesome that she felt comfortable to call me and have a yarn about it. And it got to a point where now she's organizing a cruise. So keep an eye out. It's going to be early next year, probably in February. And we will organize a cruise. It might even be a charity cruise, which is pretty cool. I'm leaving it up to her to organize this stuff. I don't think I'm going to get the GTR ready, but I will be there, hopefully in car hopping in people's cars, and I will definitely document the day. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be super cool. Um, in other news, I did a huge Woolies food shop last week, and I didn't order any carbs. I have been a little bit obsessed with trying to lose like 5 kilos. I went from 51 kilos when I was in a fucking shit place to 68 or 69 kilos. And now I'm back down to 64. And I think I want to get back to my average weight of 58 or 60. Um, and I think I've just got to drink less. But yeah, I ordered a shitload of healthy things, and I've been eating salads. Making salads is the fucking first time in my life that I've made a salad. And man, they're tasty as fuck. The only thing is like half an hour later, you just want to make another one. So um, I'm really enjoying it. And my headspace is really good at the moment. Like, I am so close to making art again. I know I just have to do it and stop thinking about it. But that genuine desire to actually want to make art again is coming back. It's coming back really strong. It's not just like I really want to do it. It's like I'm starting to obsess about it. And for me, in my life, if I don't obsess about something, then I'm not going to get good at it. So it has to be a natural obsession. And I really find myself getting there. So I really don't think it's going to be long before I pick up an art pad. I'm going to start with pencils. I mean, as much as I love painting, pencils were my first love in art. And, the 2B, the 4B, and the 6B, my favorite pencils of all time. Um, I really am excited, and I can't wait to see what comes out. And more importantly, I'm excited to see how I feel um, creating art again. And hopefully, I can get to a point where, just like I was when I was a kid, I would get up every day, curl up into a ball in the lounge room, in the sunroom, and just draw all day, and then play Lego, and then watch cartoons. But then I would draw. I would always draw. And even at school, I was always doodling the fuck. That's probably why I pretty much failed every single subject in school, was I was just too busy drawing. Um, so yeah, getting back to my roots for sure. I really can't wait. All right, so I've got a few questions, not too many, but it's awesome to get questions. And I didn't post up a Q&A on Friday. Instead, I posted it up on the weekend. And I think that might have been the reason for less questions, because I think, on Friday, people are getting ready to get off work and more than happy to input like a couple of minutes of their time to just put a question up for me. And I suppose putting it up on Saturday, hopefully people were out and about, man, and like, not on Facebook, which is fucking great. But first question comes in through Twitter, actually. How do you deal with wanting to be a part of a car or bike social group, but not wanting to deal with the politics they come with? I find myself lacking social interaction because I'm trying to avoid drama. Man, that's that's so bang on, right? It's like how Rachel was saying, like she's just having fun out there in her modified Japanese car with another guy who's got a modified Japanese car, and someone who doesn't understand it is just going to flip the bird at you and ruin your whole fucking day. And I get it. It's like there's strength in numbers. It feels nice to be part of a family, but then a lot of people don't have the resilience to put themselves under scrutiny. And I find this with so many people these days. It feels like people would rather send me a private message rather than posting an opinion, an honest opinion in public, because they just don't want to deal with the shit. And yeah, you deal with this shit, man. Like I've had bullies my whole life and I still have bullies today. But the hardest thing you have to learn is to not fuel these bullies, to not feed the trolls, right? It's like I've been watching this YouTube documentary series called Down the Rabbit Hole, and it's super geeky, and it does these. They make these hour long, 2 hour long documentaries on nobodies who have discovered YouTube or something. Maybe people with autism and all sorts of strange, wonderful people. And when they start publishing stuff, the 4chan and Reddit communities start to find, oh, this is embarrassing and this is interesting. Let's expose this shit. And then they start making posts and videos about these people and making fun of them. And it's like fucking entertainment because some people just can't help but retaliate. And when you retaliate against these trolls, you're just feeding them. So it's not doing yourself any favors whatsoever. And yeah, you go further down the rabbit hole and you start to realize like these people don't have your best interest at heart. So by feeding them, you're only making them more money, more hits, more likes. And the only way for it to go away is for you to ignore them. So I totally understand it. It's like you, you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out about it, right? Like you understand if you join a group of like minded people and enthusiasts, then your group could be targeted. And, having to represent a group, wearing a sticker on your car or your bike or wearing a t shirt instantly puts you in a position where someone can judge you. If you're just wearing a plain black t-shirt with no logos on it, maybe no one's going to say anything. But you wear a t-shirt with the club name on it, someone might just go, "Oh, you're a boy. You're one of those boy racers, or you're one of those hoons, or something." So I totally understand it, but I still think you got to be in it to win it. Like it sounds like you're in a position where you're passionate about what it is that you're into, be it cars or bikes, and it also sounds like you're hungry for some sort of interaction with like-minded people. And yeah, it comes at a price. It comes at a price, and that's why Zen Garage has the "It's okay you don't if you don't get it" motto, because that's what life is. We all make fun of things that we don't understand. I always bring up the Justin Bieber thing. Like, I fucking don't like Justin Bieber. I don't like his music. But who knows? If I sat down and had a beer with him, maybe he's an okay guy. Who knows? Like, I don't fucking know him. I don't think I should hate him. But there's always things that we don't understand, and there's always people that are going to misunderstand you as well, and being misunderstood is one of the most frustrating feelings in the world. But if you can justify it to yourself that you're really into this and you want to go and look at for people who are also really into what you're into, because there's almost nothing better when you can just click with someone and talk about shit that you're into without someone that doesn't understand it telling you, oh my God, you're fucking talking about cars again. Can you guys stop fucking talking about cars? It's driving me nuts. Well, yeah, you need to find people that you can just talk cars with and not feel guilty about it and just let loose and get heated sometimes when you have to. But like that mutual respect that you can find in a community or a tight community or positive community, um, it's awesome, man. I'm always hungry for that shit. I'm always looking for like-minded people in life. And I honestly think you should just give it a go. You know, if you get bullied by it, well, fuck, maybe you can think about how to deal with that later on. But maybe you can learn how to deal with that as you go. But I would say it's still better to have a community to be a part of as opposed to going it alone. All right, next question from Jun. Biltong or Dro Wars? I don't even know what Dro Wars are. But Biltong's good, right? Biltong is the dried meat, yeah? I don't know if I have had much of it in my life. Beef jerky? I like that shit. I have no idea what Dro Wars are. Sorry, bro. But yeah, I love meat. And just reminds me, I don't think it's quite biltong, right? It's Hamon. When I went to Barcelona and had Hamon for the first time, they would have it all over the streets, like literally just like these mini baguettes, and you'd get this mini baguette with a thick spread of butter on it and with a slice of Hamon. And I have never had Hamon as good as I had in Barcelona in Sydney. I've been to a few places that have imported that shit, and I've tried it, and it's great. But just, there's something about being in Barcelona, and then like when you get a bit peckish, just popping into one of those shops on the street and just getting a little mini baguette with a slice of Hamon in it, and oh, heaven, so good. Next question. Antonio from the US, from Motor Mavens, is a good guy. Describe your craziest photo shoot. Man, I don't think I've had a crazy photo shoot, dude. Like, I've met crazy girls and had some fun shoots, but I don't think any shoot that I've been on has been like crazy. You know, I think hanging out with Kasha Zhu from New York. She's an amazing model. She's an amazing artist. She's probably the only model that I've shot that moves the way she does. We borrowed some awesome outfits from my friends at Baby Likes to Pony in the city, and a lot of the stuff was really transparent, and we just hit the streets. We found a gelato shop down the road and asked the owner if we could shoot in there. The owner was so cool that she even wanted to make a coffee in the background of the photos while we shot in there. She let Kasha spill milk all over her face on the floors and stuff. It was so cool. We then went to Darling Harbour and went to the kiddies playground and played on the swings and climbed up that crazy climby thing that they've got. And did some really fun stuff there, and like people would just walk past and just they'd wonder, but they wouldn't like interrupt us. It was pretty cool. And then to end that night, we shot in a cemetery, which was Kasha's idea. I'm a pretty respectful guy, so I didn't quite feel comfortable shooting at the cemetery, but that was crazy. We shot in the cemetery. It was a huge cemetery by the beach. And the security guards ended up finding us. We could see their flashlights. We tried to hide. They found us. And once we explained that she's from New York, she's a model from New York, and we wanted to shoot for this brand, they were totally cool with it, which was awesome. Like, it never happens. Usually, it's easier for security guards to kick you out, right? Because they don't want to lose their jobs, whatever. It's just easier for them to say no. But these two guys were totally cool. They kept their distance, but they were happy to watch. And we got some crazy shots. So that was pretty crazy, shooting in a cemetery. Okay, I admit, I don't think I'd ever do that again. Shooting with CJ Miles as well from Vegas. She's a crazy woman. She's got so much energy. She asked if I had a banana at some stage, and she was like sucking the banana. Uh, that was nuts. And then she also got me to get out of my clothes. She said it was only fair if that she was not going to be wearing clothes, that I had to not wear clothes either. So that was nuts. Um, but yeah, in terms of like craziest photo shoot, they're is not that crazy. I still think like even getting the opportunity to shoot the very first build of the Porsche 918 Spider at the Porsche Center Willoughby, after hours when the shop was shut, and I could just roam around the entire showroom and the workshop and the stock rooms and just be left alone to just shoot whatever I wanted to. That's pretty crazy, and that's pretty cool. Um, so I hope I answered your question, Antonio. I'm sure you wanted more juicy details, but it's not gonna happen on this podcast, bro. um, a question from my good mate Ben Wilson. Ben Wilson is an amazing runner. He used to live in Bondi Beach, and he used to just run down to my place in Maruba Beach and just ask for a glass of water, and then he would just run back. And I just find runners fascinating, man. Like, he hated running with other people, I think, because there must be a particular cadence that you keep as a runner. And if you're going to run with someone for that long, you probably want to run with someone that breathes and steps in exactly the same way you do so that you're synchronized or something. I should probably get him on a podcast, actually. I'd love to. But his question is, tell me about learning to drive. Um, Man, my first set of wheels was a skateboard. I was a skater kid for sure. That whole Powell Peralta and Tony Hawk and Lance Mountain and Steve Caballero, all those guys were heroes for me. So skating was my first foray into getting out of the house, finding that freedom and traveling distance, and just freedom. And after skating, it was cycling, and I was super into the Sydney to Gong race every year. Eventually, I got into mountain biking. I even entered into a few races when I was younger, and mountain biking was again just a way for me to get out of the house and just ride and travel, go places. So after cycling, as much as I loved cars as a kid, I was so into cycling that I didn't want a car. I didn't like cars at all at that time. So I got a motorbike. Against my parents' wishes, they wouldn't buy me one. So I worked as a night packer at Woolies, and eventually saved up to get my own motorbike. And turns out motorbikes weren't for me. They were a bit heavy. I was really skinny and little, no muscles, and even a 250cc was too heavy for me. And I got myself into some really sticky situations where I almost came off a couple of times, and I started to develop a fear for motorbikes, actually. So it was good timing, because at that time my parents were still really concerned about me being on a motorbike, because we've got a family member who has a limp, constant limp, and it was caused by a motorcycle accident. So my parents convinced me to buy a car. They would I'd sell my motorbike and the money would go into a car, and my parents would add on to that and get a decent car. So my first car was a Toyota Celica, and it was an automatic because I had no idea how to drive manual. And I wouldn't say I learned how to drive in that thing. I ended up with an Alpha 147 with a DSG gearbox. It was called Cellar Speed. Alpha call it Cellar Speed, but it's a DSG gearbox, clutchless manual. And started going to the racetrack and really, really enjoyed that. So I was playing Gran Turismo at the time, and I was using an R32 GTR Nismo edition in the game. And I ended up getting the courage to buy a GTR, and I learned how to drive manual on my GTR. It's another reason why I don't think I'll ever sell that car. I mean, I used to go out at like 3 or 4 in the morning when everyone was asleep in the hood, and I would learn how to drive the GTR and learn how to drive manual. And I burnt the first clutch pretty quickly. Um, uh, I have a connection with that car, and there's a lot of history with the badge, the GTR badge, but there's also a lot of history with that car with me. So, um, yeah, that's how I learned how to drive. And if I really was honest though, a car that's probably taught me how to drive more than any other car was the Mazda MX-5, or the Mazda MX-5, man, the Miata. The MX-5 just taught me how to drive to my limits and learn how to drive sideways, at least catch the tail. I wouldn't say I was drifting. I was more learning how to go into corners so much hotter than you usually would dare yourself to, and then slowing the car down with going sideways. So it was like throwing yourself into a corner hot, initiating a drift to slow yourself down through the corner, and having no power whatsoever to power out of it. But it just taught me a lot about uh, going faster and learning how to control a car that's out of control. So yeah, massive props to the MX-5. I know a lot of people don't like those cars and think they're hairdresser cars, but man, they teach you how to drive. Johnny Chimpo has asked me, when do you visit me in Germany? Yeah, dude, that would be awesome. You're a cool dude, and Germany has always been this place I wanted to visit, man, especially when I was crazy about VW Golfs. We even organized a trip to Germany, and we had a few people that were interested in it, and we started planning the route out. We started planning the trip, and it just never happened. And I'm really sad about it. So I think I will visit Germany in my lifetime. I just don't know when, but when I do, Johnny, you will be the first to hear about it. And I have a question from Lucas McClellan, who is the son of Rachel, um, who called me last week, who's the mother of Christy. So this is awesome. I really hope to get the McClellans all in one room again at some point. That would be so cool. Lucas asks, what's kept you in Sydney when you obviously have a deep love for Melbourne? Yeah, man, I don't even know. I love Melbourne so much. I have visited Melbourne nearly every year of my life. At some point there, I stopped visiting so much, but Melbourne is like a place where you can have an artwork in the city, and no one will deface it. No one will steal it. Um, the government seems to have a budget for art, and they appreciate it and respect it. And I've just always found Melbourne to be less corporate. It's not about the Audis and the Mercs. It's not about fine dining. It's cheaper, better food, better coffee. It's a romantic city. It's beautiful. It's a pub crawling city. You don't need to plan anything. The pubs aren't on the corners, there's sometimes pubs every 3 shops is a fucking pub. And the pubs are filled with rickety old comfy couches, which reminds me of my uni days where you would go to the Salvos and buy a disgusting purple couch because it looked different and cool and it was worn and comfy. And I love Melbourne, man. I just love it so much. And I think part of the reason why I haven't moved there is because I've had such good times there. I've literally never had a bad time in Melbourne my entire life. And sometimes when you're on a good thing, you don't want to ruin it. And maybe if I lived there, I would start to hate it. And I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to spoil myself. I don't want to spoil Melbourne. So I want to keep it as this awesome place to visit, an awesome place where I have new experiences every time and familiar experiences. I love going to the same places that I like to haunt when I'm there, like the Chapel Street Bazaar and shit like that. I fucking love it. And certain cafes that I love to visit. And I'm always so stoked to see that they're still there. I really hope they're still there after COVID. And I suppose another reason why I don't I've never moved to Melbourne or anywhere else. Like at some stage, I met a girl who lived in Tokyo in Japan and really tried to get over there, but I couldn't get the visa. And I remember with moving to Japan, I was so nervous about telling my mum that I wanted to move to Japan, thinking that she would be upset. Because I have a really strong connection with my mum. She's one of my best friends, you know, if not my best friend. And I speak to her just like I speak to you guys on this podcast. If anything, I speak to her even more openly. She knows everything about what's going on in my life. And she saved my life, you know, a few years ago. And I hate that I put her through so much shit. Um, and I thought she would be upset with me telling her that I wanted to move to Japan. But when I finally did tell her that I wanted to move, her instant reaction was a huge smile. And she was so happy for me to move. And I was like, fuck, mom, I thought you were going to be upset. I was shocked that she was happy. So that's all been in my head. You know, maybe I'm the mummy's boy and I'm the one that doesn't want to leave her, you know. Um, she'd be happy if I moved to Melbourne, but I like being close to her. I like to see her once a week, you know, or try to see her once a week, if not once a week, once every 2 weeks. And I think as my mum gets older, I want to be even closer to her now. So maybe I should have moved to Melbourne when I could have. But I still have a dream of like selling up this place that I'm in at the moment. It's worth a shit ton more than when I bought it all those years ago. And I kind of want to retire on the money. So Melbourne's always been on the cards. I'd love to buy a place in Melbourne. I think it'll be way cheaper. I mean, I'm sure Melbourne's not cheap anymore either, but I'm sure it'd be a shitload cheaper than buying up again in Sydney, which I wouldn't do anyway. I don't think I'd ever buy up another place in the city. I'd probably want an acreage of some sort with like some sort of creek on it or a forest in the backyard, something wild, something I don't have to mow, something where there's lots of wildlife. Uh, that's the master plan that I haven't developed. So yeah, that wraps up the Q&A. I'm going to wrap this up too. Hope you guys have an awesome week. The weather's really good today. The birds are fucking chirping their nuts off outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that through this microphone. I hope not. Yeah, so have an awesome week, guys. I shall catch you guys in the next one. See yous.